I turned famous creepypasta villains into 3D models by Bini? Bini? Not sure how you say that. I have to remember these names so I can put them in the description when I upload.
Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video.
Alright, here we go. Ooh, little loud, little loud. Ooh, there we go. Let me know if y'all can hear this okay.
Hey, it's me, Bini. Stay close.
Let's get this party started.
Luckily,
Hell yeah!
This candle handle. Pretty good. But not as good as this pasta we're about to jump into. Creepypasta, that is. The term derives from the earlier term of copypasta, which was usually some
All
body
well and
text
here great.
that was considered amusing or otherwise deemed worthy.
Oh, good,
of
good, good.
reposting in an ironic way in any place that had a messaging system.
You let me know if something
Stuff
goes
like
fucky
the
wucky,
tale of
okay?
Darth Plagueis the Wise, and you have to have a very high IQ to understand Rick and Morty, or the
Oh,
old
God.
Gold. What the f did you just fucking say about me, you little bitch?
Oh, that's a classic. I love somebody actually took that copypasta and made a song out of it. They got their guitar out and they were like,
Will
what?
do, buddy.
Oh, okay, good. But they got their guitar out and it was like, what the fuck did you just say to me, you little bitch? I'll have you know I'm a Navy SEAL. Like, I love that version of it.
Oh, and copypasta just comes from the idea that you copy and paste these from wherever you found them into a comment section or something. They were just being a little silly with it when they turned paste to pasta. And just so, copypasta was turned into creepypasta when internet horror stories began to gain major traction online and found themselves being reposted all over forums and later widely covered by YouTubers. Mostly in the form of voice narration, but...
Whoa! Fourth wall break! Fourth wall! You're breaking the fourth wall! Oh, by the way, I know I did one video where me and a friend of mine read out some creepypastas. If y'all want, some more, videos like that, let me know. We'll read out creepypastas. Good and bad. Probably mostly bad.
Is this the right place? Huh?
The Big Book of Creepypastas.
Oh,
The Ancient Tome.
very cool.
Uh-oh. What's this?
Stopped bust.
Oh.
Stopped bust, as in the sculpture from the shoulders up.
Oh, yeah. Alright, so here's the deal. Most stories have an antagonist, and as creepypastas gained notoriety for their horror stories, so did their antagonists. Looks like tonight we're gonna sculpt them as busts. There's all kind of classics in here, so let's just flip over to...
Go to page 92.
Very specific.
Slender Man! A good place to warm up. Originally part of a 2009 Photoshop competition on the Something Awful forum, as a submission posted by one Eric Knudsen, alias Victor Surge.
Victor Surge.
His original post contains a black and white photograph of various children, with a photoshopped in Slenderman looming in the back, accompanied by the quote,
Oh yeah, but why does that kid in the front look pissed?
"We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them. But its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time." 1983. Photographer unknown. Presumed dead.
Slenderman iconic
It was a bit harder to see in
creepypasta.
these original entries, but people quickly latched onto the creature.
The
and it
OG.
didn't take long for it to become an absolute phenomenon. The original thread for the competition started on June 8th, and on the 20th of the same month, an indie horror series known as Marble Hornets dropped. Following
Marble
the
Hornets.
escapades of a bunch of film students and their dealings with Slenderman, or as they called him, the Operator. Not only is that turnaround time insane, but Marble Hornets went on to contribute massively to the online horror space and influenced many that followed. His usual MO is stealing kids, or in the Marble Hornets depiction, he'll turn people into his proxies, which is just a fancy way of saying he's got them under mind control. That being said, the specifics of Slender Man are pretty nebulous, considering he started off as some pictures with some descriptions to lay the groundwork of his lore, but as other people started adding onto the mythos and contributing their own ideas, it's become more of a crowdsourced lore of different versions over the years. I'm sure a good chunk of you know
Why
Slender
do
Man
I
and what he
hear
looks
Marvel
like by
instead
now,
of Marvel
and if I'm gonna
rolling
start
on the floor
sculpting him,
laughing?
I'm gonna have to create a base. Our starting point, a sphere. Before we jump into anything too detailed yet,
Well, they do
we
sound
need to carve out
similar.
the basic shape of a humanoid head and torso. That means extending out the bottom into a base and pulling out the top part, separating them out with the neck by carving away some mass in the middle. We're pulling the torso down into a wedge shape and pulling the head.
Bro, I wish I could do 3D modeling like this in like Blender and shit. I wish I could do it. But I got the kind of autism that makes it really hard to follow even simple steps or direction. So even watching a tutorial video, my brain was just, yeah, my brain was spaghetti trying to listen to that, trying to follow that.
Into a more bulbous shape, with a point at the front for our chin. We'll define the form by removing space
When
over the
is the
jawline
face
and adding
reveal
in
at
neck
Goth
muscles,
Mermaid
namely
Gamer?
the sternocleidomastoid.
Well, if you watch some of
That's
my
the big
really,
one.
really
Here's a
old,
picture
like,
for reference.
first
We'll
videos
also define
that I put on the
structure of
channel,
face
I
by
did have
creating
my
some
face
depth
cam.
under where the cheekbones would be. That way it looks more like a face without
I haven't
needing to
really
give it
changed
actual
much
features.
since
I actually
then.
ended up sculpting a lot more torso definition than
Maybe I
really
got a little
wanted to,
fatter, but I
considering
need
he's gonna
to.
be covered
I'm
with a
working
suit.
on that.
For said suit,
Very
we'll create a cube
relatable.
object and pull it over the shape of the torso, assigning a darker color for some visual distinction while we work. For the neck hole of the suit, we'll mask out a circle and pull it down so Slender can fit nice and snugly, and carve in an upside down triangle on the front so we can make a start on the actual aspects of the suit itself. I've gotta wonder who his tailor is, but for now that's us. I'm also drawing in the collar on
That's
its
a good
surface
question,
with some
yeah.
basic height lines and
Where'd he
creating
get
a
that
new object colored red for the tie. This is just a stretched out sphere, and we'll pull it down into the bottom of that upside down triangle to fit snugly into its base, and draw a line at the upper end for the start of the knot that makes up the tie. It looks a little blobby at the back, but that's because it's sitting inside the suit where we can't see it, so there's no point creating details there.
Yeah,
For
you're not
Slender's
gonna see
lapel,
that part,
we're drawing
so.
over the suit object with a mask in the shape of the lapels and pulling them outwards so it looks more like it's layered over the suit. Since messing around in one object for the whole suit can get a bit wonky, we're just going to make a quick go around to crisp out those edges and make sure it looks more like an actual defined set of clothing. I'm also
Nice.
going to go over the shirt part of the torso with a white paintbrush, which doesn't actually do much in the long run, but I like seeing what I'm doing in a more complete way. That's
Fair
pretty
enough.
much the suit done, and now we can go back to the Slender head to make some tweaks and smooth out any rough brushes. Mostly, we're defining the skull even more, creating mass for the brow ridges, cheekbones, and creating slight dents where the eye sockets are. The suit gets the same treatment, and we'll go over it with a standard brush to draw in some simple wrinkling for a touch of realism. Plus, if this guy's wandering the woods all the time, there is no way he isn't getting some wrinkles in there.
Yeah.
The head will just get a finish with a textured brush, that way the skin isn't too perfectly smooth and we can have some imperfection, however subtle. With our sculpt done, it's time for retopology. This means essentially recreating the model at a lower count of polygons. This will optimize our result and we can transfer the details of the higher polygon sculpt to its textures so we don't lose that detail.
Oh.
To do so, I'm using a cube that is being affected by a series of modifiers. These are basically effects for an object that serve all kinds of purposes, while also not affecting the polygons directly. That way we can still have some freedom while we're editing away. Of these modifiers, I'm using a subdivision modifier, which will simultaneously increase our polygon count a little while smoothing out the faces, giving a higher definition look. On top of that is a shrink wrap modifier, which can be placed in our cube and assigned to the sculpt so that it can conform to its shape and make our life just a little bit easier. Thankfully, since Slenderman's got no face, this is actually pretty peachy and we don't need any fancy tricks to get this done. It's just a matter of pulling faces to envelop the sculpt and adjusting as necessary to fit the shapes right, letting the shrink wrap do the bulk of the work here. The suit, though, is a little different. Since it's a much more complex shape with changes in elevation and harder angles, we're gonna need to retopologize the suit manually. This means creating edges along the trim of the suit and places like the lapel and collar, and it sure is time consuming, but the end result is well worth it. As for the tie, it's basically the same as the head, using a cube with the same subdivision and shrink wrap modifiers, but this time assigned to the tie. It's basically—
Oh, I just noticed he's got like a timer down here. it's counting backwards, but I just looked at it and it said like 4 hours, and it was like, dude, it really does take hours to do this. Like, he's explaining it simple, but the actual work takes hours.
Really just a tube with a line in it, so nothing too crazy here. The suit's looking just a little too smooth, so I'm going to go around the edges of the suit with some edge creasing, which are these pink lines you see here. These just diminish the smoothing effects of the subdivision modifier, allowing us to, well, crease the edges, making them harder and more visually distinct. Since I want to texture this guy, we need to make sure our model knows what parts of the model take up what parts of our texture space, and to do that we need to undertake UV mapping. Since this character isn't that complex, being a bust and all, we don't have to worry too much about the tedium of it. Our topology is clean, and that means we can mark these red lines, known as seams, pretty easily, contouring across the edges of our model and aiming to keep them as
Whoa, what are you doing,
as
Arm?
possible. That means
Sorry
the
about that.
seams on the head are lined up the side, and the seams for the suit
I
go
watched
right
more
up
of the
front and back,
MK1
lining up
RE
with the tie at
intros
the
from
front,
Odd
so it's
Giant
not as
and
visible.
Man, some of
You
funniest
may be
Mortal
wondering why we
Kombat
need to try and
videos
keep
I
these as
ever
hidden as
watched, and
possible,
I
and
thank
while
you
they're not
very
visible
much
in and
for
of
getting
themselves
me
outside
into
the
them
mesh
after the
editing like
Halloween
this,
special.
these are the lines where our
You're
model spaces
very
can be split open
welcome,
and laid
yes.
flat over our texture area. As a result, sometimes
They're
during
amazing,
texturing,
and the
these seams can become
creativity
visible as
behind
it
them.
crosses the line from
I
one
wish I
UV
knew how
item
to
to
write
another because of
dialogue like
texture
that.
artifacts, which is basically fancy lingo for a visual
Like,
glitch.
funny dialogue.
As we take the plunge into texturing, we'll import our lower detail model and use a process called baking, in which we'll use a higher detail model as a reference point. And our software will bake the details into the lower detail model by creating a series of textures to affect the lighting and the way the model is rendered, creating the illusion that the model has the surface detail of the sculpted one. Now we can start. And first move on the
Yawn,
docket is
excuse
to
me.
give the skin on the head a
I
somewhat
wonder if
organic
we'll
tint.
get a
To do
Christmas
that, we'll use
special
one of
this
the
year.
textures we got from baking, which
Maybe.
contrasts to
He
the
usually
thickness
does
of
some
our
kind of
model.
party or
This
gathering
highlights the
thing
real
every
way
holiday.
blood and stuff gets shown in your face, and since the thinner your skin is, the more visible your vessels are and the redder it looks. I don't really want to
They're
make
the big
someone
ones
blush
anyways.
right now though, so instead of a red tinge, I'm using more of an off-white. It's subtle, but it's there. Next up, we're drawing in some shading, namely around the neck area, but we're also using another baking texture known as ambient occlusion, which simulates the subtle shadowing in the more hidden parts of the model. The suit is probably the juicier part of this process, and while I didn't realize it at first, the colors that I painted in while I was sculpting actually came through as their own texture in the export, which I didn't expect, but it's a welcome surprise. I can layer it in as a visual direction and actually use it for masking as well by selecting the colors within it. Despite that, I'm still creating layered folders containing their own colors for each section. That way I just have more control over the shininess and whatnot. Since this stuff is fabric, I needed to have some weaving, and to do that I'm using some textures as masking for the fabric pattern, and using a combination of different shininess and a very slight height layer to give off the impression that this is a real piece of clothing, and not just a clay statue.
Oh, that's cool.
And, for the sake of variation, I'm using a slightly different types of fabric patterns for the suit, shirt, and tie respectively. Even still, it's looking a little too clean, and I'll be damned if this guy's walking through the woods unattended with a perfectly laundered suit.
Yeah.
So, we're placing a dirt layer, which is actually just a bit of darkened color and some diminishing of the shininess.
Yeah, he needs to
We
be a
could
little
just draw it
dusty.
in, but since we have those baked textures from earlier, we actually have the option to use procedurally generated masks that use those textures as a guide. Thus, we have procedural dirt and wear, which we can adjust and pull back as necessary so it isn't too overbearing. After that, all that's left is to do some finishing touches to the texture and repair any artifacts that may have cropped up during our texturing process. I forgot to record myself doing it, but I also added
Is the
Slender's
new
black
GIF
tentacles to the
Mermaid
back
Gamer
using
for
Bezier
YouTube?
curves, which are essentially adjustable tubes of geometry that we can pivot to look like a set of tentacles.
What do you mean?
And with that, our first creepypasta antagonist comes to fruition. The Slender Man.
Nice. That came out great. He's approving it.
Acceptable results.
Alright, nice.
Acceptable.
One down, two to go. What do
Very,
we have
very
next?
awesome Slenderman model.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, back into it, huh? But before we do, I want to make it known that the next few sculptures are only going to get more detail heavy as we go on, and since these are all upper body sculptures, I feel like I need to touch up on my anatomy knowledge, so I'd like to thank today's sponsor for this video, Skillshare. This place is a real hotspot for creatives like us. There's thousands of classes we can take in here. let's just get some preferences on the board, and we've got all kinds of creative learning with game design classes for Skillshare. Oh, here we
Get through the ad.
Anatomy knowledge is skull anatomy, just sculpts. Something we'll be doing up to speed and celebrating all the creative attitude. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today! Now back to the video. Jeff the Killer.
I know you had to know he was coming.
The original story was written by user Sir, whose name also happens to be Jeff.
I was about to say no, it wasn't, and then there's a little correction. What does that say? Oh wait, yeah, I think Sir was actually the original.
Jeff the Killer, another iconic creepypasta.
Yep. For better or for worse. Okay, yes, Sisora was actually like the original creator, and then like some other guy like plagiarized his work and made the official version that we're all familiar with.
Do with that information what you will. As far as I know, the origin of the image actually hasn't been definitively found, but it's something people have been looking for a while now, and frankly it's incredible that it hasn't been found outside of a vague paper trail and a bunch of hoaxes.
My friend sometimes in the night keeps on spamming that Jeff picture just to scare me, but I know it's a creepypasta picture.
Oh, what a butthole. Oh, that would not be my friend. I've already told my friends not to do scare pranks like that on me. That would be like a friendship ender. I made sure they knew about that. Which, by the way, yeah, don't be sneaking in here with any screamer videos or anything like that, because you will be banned.
Are you going to play Ghostface when he is out?
Yeah. Sure. Of course. I already got him for DBD, and I plan on using him soon. So yeah. But as I was saying, yeah, not about that. Yeah, not only will you be causing me some emotional damage, and giving me panic attacks, like legit, that shit gives me panic attacks. But you will be banned forever. So yeah, just a little warning on that.
Bit ironic, considering the fact that some considered it to kind of suck. Like, okay, Jeff starts out as a 13-year-old guy, right? He's pretty angsty and he ends up
13 to 15.
Bullies, but one day Jeff is forced to hang out at the weird neighbor kid's birthday party when said bullies jump the fence with guns. Which is already wild, but Jeff actually manages to kill one in the story, and he then proceeds to get bleach dumped onto his face and set on fire, which I don't think is great for you, but I also don't think it literally turns you into the Joker.
Also, that's not how bleach works. Bleach isn't flammable like that. And I don't care if they said alcohol, too. There was bleach in there, too. No, sorry. It doesn't work like that. See, in the original story by Killer Jeff or Sisur, it was a cleaning product he was using, like some kind of acidic product he was using, and he spilled it on himself, and that's what burned him. So that makes a little more sense.
I mean, he straight up carves a smile into his own face. Not to mention the nose, or lack thereof. How did that happen? And if it was burning his skin, then why is he so smooth? Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but
yeah, in case you don't know, your skin gets rough and leathery, and definitely the opposite of white.
the end of the story, Jeff is now Jeff the Killer, and his MO is to climb into people's windows at night and say his classic catchphrase, "Go to sleep." And then he kills them, so I don't know why he even asked.
Or as the bad creepypasta guys say, "Go to Kip!"
Being said, his widespread success on the internet can be attributed to the previously mentioned image, which came attached with the creepypasta and was the bane of many in the 2008 internet, where clicking the wrong link would get you a one-way ticket to a Jeff the Killer jump scare. Or screamer, if you're an OG. Jeff's look is...
Yeah, and that's that shit I'm talking about. Do not send me anything like that and prank, quote unquote, prank me with it. You will be banned and be responsible for causing a panic attack in me.
Is pretty distinct, with tones of white in his face and a hoodie
The
to
face
match,
is
which
definitely
isn't that
nightmare
visible in the
fuel.
picture, but it's
Oh
mentioned
yeah,
in the
that's like
story. So we've got
that's like the scariest part about it. Honestly, the story is garbage, but at least the picture's creepy.
confirmation there. His hair is a stringy black shoulder length.
Because like I have this like fear of I do not like big bulgy eyes just staring at me, like a big wide open bulgy eyes staring at me. I hate that. That's creepy to me.
Length cut, and he's got that classic wide Glasgow smile, complemented by small piercing eyes that sit in dark circles and no iris to be seen. Luckily, this guy happens to be humanoid, so we can actually
The
use
big
the
wide
base we
open
created for
eyes.
Slender Man as our baseline
Yep.
to sculpt on. To start off, we're just trying to get the forms of the head.
There any more
I'm adding a bit
pearls
of
in
mass
here,
to the
or
cheek
did I-
area because Jeff's
Nope.
honestly got a bit
I
of
finished
a
it.
head, and holes for the eye sockets, plus spheres for the eyes and little painted pupils for
Throw that
reference.
in the garbage.
To get an idea of the mouth placement,
Alright.
we'll add some forms around the mouth, leading up into the nose bridge and then carving in a mouth over those forms. A real wide one. We could keep going from here, but I think it's better to have some visual direction. After all, that's why I keep painting onto the sculptures with no intention of using those colors later. So it's time to model. We're creating some teeth and gums here, and to do that, we'll start off with a cube and apply 2 modifiers to it. A mirror modifier to symmetrize it, and a subdivision modifier to give it some roundness. I'll extend out the shape to look like a C, and below that use some smaller subdivided cubes to act as the teeth. If these were all the same size and distribution, it'd look a little bit artificial, so to
Yeah.
get a little bit more of a natural smile, we'll make the tops of the teeth
That's why people who get all their teeth fixed to be straight and perfect look kind of uncanny because, they're all the teeth are basically the same size and shape on just about. It looks too perfect, so it looks really uncanny.
rounded, and the bottom's flat for that shovel head shape that teeth generally have. And we'll make the 2 front teeth just a little bigger, and make sure the bottom row is smaller than the top row. With the teeth imported to our sculpt, we now have a good reference point to start sculpting around the mouth area, and we'll just define the jaw slightly and create a crease at the halfway point between the bottom of the mouth and the chin that'll create the definition for the bottom lip. With a better look at what we're working with here, we'll also adjust the positioning of the eyes and adjust the silhouette of the head to more closely resemble a person. Oh, well, a person with no nose anyway. Despite the fact the eyes are pretty much entirely circular, I still wanted a little bit of eyelid, so we'll just do some subtle ones without compromising the roundness of the eyes since it definitely contributes to the creepy factor. Like how insects have those big empty lidless eyes. Ugh. Some more moving around of shapes is in order, and we can draw in some lines under the eyes to act as the flowing angle change that separates the eye socket from the padding in the cheek and nose area. Some more finishing touches include defining the head shape to better match the original image, pulling up the shoulders to have more of a hunched look, and pulling the eyes forward a bit so they line up proportionately with the mouth. And now the head for Jeff the Killer is pretty much sculpted.
Yeah, the cutting his eyelids off so that he's always got the big wide open eyes. It looks creepy and all, but it's not like practical to like real life because after a while your eyes would probably shrivel up, get all dry, you'd go blind because your eyelids are supposed to help moisten your eyeballs. So unless bro had some eye drops that he was regularly squirting into his eyes, he's blind, and they've also probably just like dried out and shriveled.
Now it's time for the hair. Admittedly, this will get a rework later on, but initially I'm considering taking the approach of stylized sculpted on the hair. It's sort of like how Lego hair looks, but ideally with more realism. As a base, we're adding a sphere tinted black and pulling its shapes to wrap around Jeff's head, with the exception of parts where the hair hangs low to the shoulders. We can use a snake hook brush here that's similar to a normal grabbing and moving brush, except it also adds a little more geometry when it does it, so we don't run out of faces to work with as quickly. We'll come back to define the actual strands later, but I'm going to go back to the head for now to do some even further adjustment. Initially just proportioning stuff and trying to get it to look better and closer to the OG image, but as we get a better shape we can take a moment to do some detailing. Human mouths generally have a bit of an overlapping fold at the corners of their mouth where the fat pads from your cheeks overlap the muscles in the edge of your mouth, and it becomes more prevalent the wider you smile as it pulls farther into the cheeks. I later clocked that this probably wouldn't be entirely lore accurate for Jeff, considering his mouth is actually cut open, but
Yeah.
I'm mostly going off the image here, which doesn't really have any scarring or anything, so I'm just gonna consider myself safe for now. And in the same way as those folds, I'm gonna add some mass onto the corners of the mouth, slightly folding over the corners. Now it's time for the hoodie! Rather than creating a new object and pulling it around to fit the model, we're just gonna draw a mask from the neck down, which is this black painting you're seeing on screen, and create a new object from that, which I can then pull out the back of to create the hood that Jeff has pulled down, using the mask to only edit the collar area of the hoodie, so the hoodie can fold over the back without pulling the whole thing down with it. In the same vein, we're using a brush that effectively inflates the surface and gives it a bit of a thickness and roundness around the collar area so that the sides of the hood can wrap around to the front. Hoodies aren't crazy complex, so all it needs is some smoothing to clean it up, and just like Slenderman's suit from earlier, we're drawing in some lines to act as the wrinkles, plus some holes in the front of the collar for the strings that you'd use to tighten the hood. The strings themselves will do after the fact, trust. Remember the hair? We're so back! And we're gonna add a bunch of lines that flow down into the shape of the hairline to give the appearance of the hair. Again, this gets reworked later, but at least you get the concept.
Yeah.
It's the last touch, and now we just need to retopologize it. However, unlike Slender, Jeff has a face. No, not a nose, mind you, but it's a step closer. That means that instead of relying on shrink wrap modifiers here, we're going to actually have to do it all manually. So that's what we'll do, drawing in edges around the floor of the eyes and mouth and enveloping it all around the head and shoulders to create an optimized version of our Jeff sculpt. The same goes for the hoodie, all manual. It's once I get to the hair that I clocked two things. 1. Retopologizing something like this hair is going to be incredibly tedious, like prohibitively tedious.
Oh
At least
gosh.
if I were to fit the shapes perfectly. 2. This sucks. It's not the worst, but it's like not the most high effort hair model in the world. So, I came up with a new idea. I was still gonna retopologize the hair, but not super closely. We're just gonna get the basic shape, and that'll be the base of the hair.
Wait.
But
Hang on.
not super closely. We're just gonna...
Oh, what Assassin's Creed game was it? Unity? Was that the one that really had the? I was gonna say Assassin's Creed Unity models be like.
Oh my god, rolling on the floor laughing.
Yeah, apparently some of that game had a lot of bugs and glitches. Pretty sure it was Unity, right? It had a lot of bugs and glitches, and one of them was like most of the face model would be gone, so you would just have like floating eyes and teeth.
gonna get the basic shape, and that'll be the base of the hair. And what we're gonna do is use a technique known as hair cards. This gets used in a lot of video games, and the idea is that you have a hair texture.
Sporting like
consists of a
Jeff,
lot
what
of
nice
strands.
hair.
And then you assign that texture to a flat plane, i.e. a card.
Who does
and
your
you put it around
hair?
the head. With enough cards and a good enough placement, it should look like hair. Now, I don't have any hair textures lying around, and I can't in good faith just go steal one from a model rip, so I'm gonna look at some hair card textures and try to recreate it.
Oh,
to the
man's
best
got
of
his
my
standards.
ability. Sometimes this process uses more than one hair texture for more naturally believable looks, but we're just gonna go with the one for now. We can place these over the top of the head base we just did and try our best to align it to Jeff's theoretical hairline without having too many intersecting cards. I also have a shrink wrap modifier assigned to this, which only affects the hair cards at their roots, while the rest of it is just a little more free-flowing. It's not perfect, but I was pleasantly surprised with the result. Jeff has hair.
It looks a lot better than what he had
This.
going at
Same as
first.
before, it's all marking seams and figuring out what'll work so we can prepare Jeff for the texturing to come. There's not much variation in texturing Jeff compared to the texturing for Slenderman, and we're just drawing in the colors as per the original reference image, painting on those dark circles around the eyes and those big crimson lips. The gums are pink, and the teeth have a slightly yellow texture that's blended to have more yellowing at the roots of the teeth, and it's here that I noticed the way the baking process imprinted the sculpt onto the low polygon model here makes the teeth a little glitchy in between. To fix that, we can just draw in some lines in those edges with a height layer going inwards to simulate the depth better. Next up, we're creating layers for each part of the model respectively. Just like the Slender model, we actually received the painted colors we did while sculpting as textures, but again we're going to create our own layers to replace them, so we can just have a bit more control. For the hoodie, we're just doing what we did for Slender Man's suit again, and creating a texture that uses the fabric pattern as its mask, with the layer itself affecting the height and the color to a lesser extent to create the appearance that the hoodie is in fact made of some kind of fabric. It's subtle in the sculpt and especially in the textures, but we'll place some metal rings around the holes on the hoodie where the strings would be, with a black hole in the middle. That way it's more visibly a pair of string holes on the collar and not just a weird dent.
Yeah.
The baking of this sculpt into the model's textures,
What
just
music
like the
do
teeth,
you
also
like
has
at
left
Goth
a bit of
Mermaid
glitchiness
Gamer?
around the lower neck and shoulder areas of Jeff's body.
Well, one, you don't have to keep adding me, unless you're talking to one of the other chatters. I like all kinds of music. You can probably tell from the playlist that I play for the stream, but that's all music that won't really get you copyright claimed. But yeah, I pretty much like all kinds of music. My favorite though is like the metal genres, some rock, rock and metal. But I also really like music soundtracks. Music soundtracks, what the hell am I saying? Movie soundtracks is what I meant to say. There's a lot of movie soundtrack music that's really awesome, that I love listening to. Game music. I like opera. I like musicals, music. Honestly, pretty much every genre I'll probably find some songs that I like. So yeah. Yeah, if you were to actually look through my music library, yeah, you'd probably find something from like you'd find something from every genre. But yeah, as far as my most favorite goes, it's probably like rock and metal, different metal genres, and like opera musical stuff. That's probably some of my favorites.
Body. As a result, we'll draw in some dark shadowing in that area, both to cover it up, but also to make it look more like Jeff's really in that hoodie, you know? Speaking of the bake textures, same as last time, we can also use procedural wear and dirt here to give the surface some imperfections. Some dirt on the face, a little more on the clothes, and also a subtly noisy texture on the surface of the skin to emulate something akin to pores or the pockiness of his burnt skin. Either way, Jeff's textures are done, and all that's left is to create those hoodie strings. Just two mirrored cylinders stretched down with their UV maps aligned over the broad surface of the hoodie to match, and black for the aglets at the end.
Kudos to this guy for knowing what those little plastic end pieces on drawstrings like that and shoestrings are called. Aglets.
That's Jeff done.
Oh, and thanks to Phineas and Ferb, that's how I learned what they were called.
Now we can put his model to rest. Or to sleep. Like, go to sleep.
Looking
like
awesome,
his
another
cat.
successful Jeff the Killer.
Yeah, it works.
Mm-hmm. Yikes. Like, terrible story, but to be fair, I would not want to see that face looking through my window. Or in the darkness.
That's 2 down, 1 to go. I think we're getting the hang of this. Shouldn't
Who's
need
next?
One more to open up. Door, what will it be?
Age 64.
Agreed, I never want to see that
let's see
face in
here.
the dark.
Mm-hmm.
The Russian Sleep.
Oh no.
A story in which 5 people are put into a test chamber. And
Oh,
dosed
I
with a
didn't know you
powerful
liked
stimulant that
Finers and
prevents sleep.
Ferb. I loved that
Said
series
tests
as a
take
kid.
place in
I'm
a
so
Soviet-era
excited
testing
for the
lab.
revival.
And said
Oh, are they making a revival? Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, it might have been... Well, I don't know. That's one of those shows that really all ages could watch, because it's, it's just one of those types of shows. But I was going to say, I was kind of, I was still in a...
Yup, they're officially coming back.
Nice. Is it going to be like an adults thing? Like they're all grown up, kind of like how that last episode or whatever was, where it showed them all in college? By the way, I'm so happy that Ferb X Vanessa was confirmed canon. Woohoo! But I think I was already grown up when that show was on. Like I was like a young
I
adult.
think a continuation from the OG series.
All right. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I was already like a young adult when it was on, but yeah, it was still good. Like I said, it's just one of those shows that all ages could watch it and enjoy it.
Stimulants are given by pumping the room with...
Those are the best kinds of shows.
Suffice to say, things don't go well when the stimulants are cut off, and the test subjects fight to stay awake by ripping off skin and just going absolutely berserk. Accompanied with the story was this absolutely harrowing image, presumably meant to be one of the subjects given the context. If it gives you the heebie-jeebies, not to worry. It's not real, if you didn't figure that out already, but...
I will admit that's one of those creepypasta pictures that for the longest time I could not look at that shit. I refused to look at it because it was so creepy. Don't show that to me! But,
The Russian sleep experiment, another well-known.
Yep. Have you guys, I mean, you probably haven't, it's less like a lesser known, like, indie kind of production, I think, but they made a movie for it. It's just called The Sleep Experiment because they changed it from Russia to Ireland. But, I don't know. I thought it was a pretty decent adaptation. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
It's not a Photoshop job either. Well, unless you count the black and white color scheme.
Yeah, if you want to go look it up, it's just called The Sleep Experiment.
It's actually a life-size Halloween decoration.
It's a Halloween decoration.
Pretty gnarly. It's nowhere near as intimidating when you look at the real thing, though. The lighting and desaturation do wonders for this thing's aura. The story itself was quite popular in its 2010 release, and its writer was a user by the name of Orange Soda. Looking at the picture itself, it looks to be an emaciated person hunched on a chair and a big toothy grin visible past their tight skin and a very defined bony face. While the spasm decoration is literally what this is a picture of, I'm gonna go ahead and only use it for reference, since it's clear the picture used for the creepypasta was intended with some visual trickery in mind.
Yeah.
The body is angled so you can't quite tell they're wearing a straitjacket. The muzzle on the side isn't really that visible, and because of the lighting and coloration, you can't really tell that there's a head wrap on there. It reads more like weathered skin. So, while it may raise some eyebrows, I'm adapting this as I see it in the picture, rather than the spasm itself. And once again,
but of course,
start with our sculpting base and work from there. I'm starting off on the torso, since it's going to be the area with the most normal anatomy.
Have you heard of this one creepypasta called the Smile Dog?
This is again stuff like...
Oh my god, Smile Dog, shut up. That's another one where I can't stand the picture. Both pictures, actually. The one where it's just the husky, and then the one where it's like all demonic, like the evolution of whatever that's called, the change version of it when it gets even creepier looking. The transition or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I can't either picture of, especially the demonic version of it. Ugh. That's another one. Like I said, I can't stand the picture. Or pictures in this case.
Sternocleidomastoid. Just love saying it. The creature in the image has a pretty defined bone structure, so we'll need to make that reflect in the model. We'll draw in some lines to define the jawline and dig in a mouth just above it. That way we can show off all those big gnarly teeth. I'll get to modeling in a minute, but for now we're gonna get the rest of the forms of the head in. That means creating some eye sockets and brow lines and drawing in those cheekbones. And guess what? We finally have a character with a nose!
Woohoo!
I'm adding a rough one on the front that's more of a bump at this point, and throwing in 2 spheres for eyeballs. This is just a rough
Same, my friend. Never thought I would see a horrifying dog from the first picture to the second all-lighted red picture.
Now we can get those teeth in, and it's essentially the
definite
same
nightmare
process as the one
fuel.
we did for Jeff. We make a C shape for the gums and a bunch of smaller, longer shapes for the teeth. Except this time, rather than more humanoid teeth, the subject for this Russian sleep experiment has much more monstrous ones, appearing longer and sharper. Once we've got that in our scene, we can put them in place, and we can move on to adjusting some more shapes. The subject in the photo has a pretty hunched over look, and as a result, we'll need to make the torso reflect that. That means pulling up the shoulders and pulling the whole torso back a bit so that the neck can be more slouched forward.
Nice.
Now I can start getting into more of the nitty-gritty. The subject has a
The
pretty
nitty-gritty.
bulbous head. I think that's on account of the head wrap, but since we're treating this all as skin, I'll just adjust that slightly on the head, and then go on to the face. We're defining the nose a bit here, giving some nostrils and adding mass to the front of the nose. Moving on up to the brow, where we can draw in the muscles that come up from the brow into the forehead, and defining the skull structure into the sides of the head.
Dude looks like a piranha.
The eyes will take a bit to adjust on account of their sort of dead-eyed vacant stare, but we can at least get those eyelids in to better illustrate the shape and give the area around it a rounder and more organic appearance. The front of the forehead on the original reference is actually pretty sloped back, so we're going to pull back on those shapes a bit since the initial build-up is a bit intense and gives it a bit too much of an angry caveman look.
Yeah.
Going around some other contours
The
of the
sleep
face, we're adding in
experiment
some
picture
lines to
probably a
pinch in the edges of
closest
the
thing
lips
to
a bit
real
and make
life
the laugh lines
Baraka.
under the cheekbones a little clearer.
Baraka? Oh, yeah.
It's gonna take a bit to get the nose right, but the rest
Oh
of the
my
sleep
gosh, I'd hope
experiment
he'd be a
seems
little
pretty
more
prominent
handsome than
nose
that.
bridge,
MK1
sloping outwards
Baraka
rather
is
than
very
inwards with
handsome.
a slight downward turn.
Yeah, shut up, I
Also
said
has
it.
A bit of a longer face than what
I
we've
don't
been
want to hear
working
no
with,
shit
so
about me
some
saying that.
stretching is in order, but if we just stretch and grab everything with a move brush and pull it up, it'll stretch everything with it and look pretty sloppy. So we're placing a mask over the bottom half of the head instead, just below the nose, and pulling it up that way, just like we did with Jeff earlier if you remember. With a better idea of the head shape, we'll make some quick adjustments before getting back into the details. This time, around the mouth. Like sculpting in some of the padding around the jaw and the bottom lip, plus those folding corners on the mouth that I mentioned earlier when we were working on Jeff. Some more touch-ups on the side profile and we'll smooth over everything. We're not too far into finer details yet, so we can afford to do this without losing much, and we'll adjust the shapes of the mouth and nose a little bit more. Now we can add a few details back.
He's got a
in,
Sherlock Holmes
sculpting around
nose.
the brow and eyelids and defining the cheek wrinkling just a bit more, as well as defining the edges between the eye sockets and eyelids, since the original character has a pretty thin distance between the brow and eyelids, which is something that varies between people.
Yeah.
Now we're going onto some surface detail. The subject of the sleep experiment has pretty rough looking skin, no doubt as a result of being starved and going feral with his fellow test subjects. So, it's time to sculpt in those gnarly wrinkles and bumps. We'll change our sculpting brush up a little, still using the same one we've been using to add mass, but this time we're changing the alpha. The alpha is essentially the shape of our brush, and by default it's a square shape, which lets us define pretty hard shapes and get the forms in. But now that we're moving on to the finer organic details, we'll use a circular alpha, which should have a smoother and more natural result when we sculpt. We're going over the model, creating the tautness of the skin by drawing the lines that give the illusion of skin being pulled back over the face, and adding in smaller folds and wrinkles on the places that line the laugh lines, eyelids, and jaw area. A lot of these wrinkles are also going along the grain of the face muscles, that way it looks more natural rather than looking like we just drew a bunch of lines haphazardly over this thing. We'll also throw in a line on the back to better define the traps and draw some mass in between so the line isn't too extreme. From there, we can make some adjustments to the head shape just to make sure it looks how we want, and then make a final pass on the nose to make sure it really lines up with the reference. I'm also painting in the pupils and stuff, but that's not really here or there. Again, it's just so I can get
Oh my god!
Now we can work on retopology.
Those eyes, Jesus Christ.
Good to go, since we created a base for them earlier that's pre-optimized, and I can just make some new lower resolution spheres for the eyeballs, so it's all a matter of getting the sculpt retopologized. There's no tips or tricks here.
Ooh,
this is a
excuse
full-on
me.
face, and a full-on face deserves a full-on retopology. I still have the modifiers
Jesus,
I like
the
to use
black
for this.
eyes.
A mirror
Yeah,
modifier,
that's what I'm
a
saying.
subdivision modifier, and a shrink wrap modifier. But we're going over all of it manually, marking out edges around crucial areas like the eyes, nose, and mouth, and then connecting their faces and working outwards to the rest of the head. There's some guides on the way you should align your topology on a human face, but for the most part what you see is a general idea of how it should be laid out, with some variation on the cleanliness of the process. We're not aiming for a model built for animation as much as being for display, so the amount of care we need to put into this is less of a strong point. That being said, I don't think it's half bad. That's a Russian sleep experiment if I've ever seen one. And once again, there's not many places to hide our seams for the UV unwrapping. So, we're placing them on the sides of the head, the edges of the inside of the mouth, and around the neck leading out into the sides of the shoulders. That way, we should have a pretty even distribution of UV islands on our texture space, and ideally that means an even distribution of texture quality.
You got an
across the board.
overbite like me.
For the textures, I'm aiming for a relatively pale appearance here to try and emulate the grey palette of the original picture, but I am throwing in a splash of colour in so it can look a little bit more alive, and I'm actually using the painting on the original Spasm prop as reference for that. Initial steps are to add the base colours, a dark crimson for gums and a greyish colour for the teeth, with some yellowing closer to the roots. The eyes use a dark base with light faded into the middle. That way it looks like the eyelids are shadowing in the edges of the eyes, and we're also drawing in some pretty huge pupils.
Oh my god.
It's not really visible in the picture, but it felt right to
If
throw in
there's
some
one
barely
creepypasta
visible
that you were
irises,
so
and also some
terrified
dark
and
veins
never
around
want
the
to
edges
look
of the
at, what
eyeballs
would
to
it be
really
and
give
why?
off that crazed and horribly
I don't know, that's kind of hard to decide. I mean, I guess this one was pretty unsettling. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think on that one. I just know the ones visually that freak me out, but as far as, like, reading them and freaking me out, like I said, this one was kind of unsettling. I think Ted the Caver, like the OG creepypasta, that one especially gets to me because I'm claustrophobic. Like, very claustrophobic. Oh, excuse me. Damn, it's only 2:25 in the afternoon. Why am I yawning? I guess I'm just always tired. But yeah, I guess, yeah. Ted the Caver is a good one, like I said, because it personally gets to me because I'm very claustrophobic. But yeah, as for any other, I'd have to really think on it. I know which ones I like. Like I told y'all last time, I really enjoy,
Opinion respected.
Oh, thank you. I know I like, Mr. Widemouth, and I like, I liked, Mr. Mix, except for the last part. If they just cut that last dumb part off, then it would be a better story. But yeah, as far as being scary and unsettling, yeah, I'd have to really think on it, aside from Ted the Caver, like I said. And this one.
sleep-deprived look. We'll also give the gums a little height detail around the edges of the teeth to look like they're really rooted in there, as well as some surface brushing on the teeth with some height layered in. That way those...
Oh, yeah, another one that I'll say was pretty unsettling was, I mean, even though I'm not religious, so, like, the last line that he says doesn't really have an effect on me. Like, just like in, Abandoned by Disney, that's a really good one, but, like, I'm not religious, so the God shit doesn't really creep me out. What is the name of that one? Gateway to the Mind was pretty... That one was pretty trippy and kind of unsettling. Being cut off from all your senses, and then he slowly goes insane.
Those pearly whites aren't looking too perfect.
Claims he can hear the dead talking to him and all that. Yeah,
black, and
that one's pretty unsettling
so the
too.
inside can be obscured in shadows. We can't really see much of the mouth past the teeth, so there's no point getting too detailed with it. Hey, do you remember that we get special textures from baking the high detail model into the lower detail model's textures? Same principle here, and we're using some of those textures to define the details in the face better by adding in an ambient occlusion texture that creates subtle shadowing, and a curvature texture that exaggerates the fold and angles of our experiment. Now it's time for actual skin coloration. Since this guy's meant to be a super pale, I'm using a slightly greyed colour as the base and then painting over it with a bunch of colours. The way colours on the face are distributed are generally sanctioned, at least in the context of texturing, by the distribution of blood, fat and hair, represented by red, yellow and blue respectively. Obviously that isn't the one-or-be-all rule for it, but it's the way I like to go about it, and there's some pretty useful references out there on how to lay it all out. Rather than using straight red for the blood though, I want it to look more sickly, so instead of a smooth blush over those areas, I'm using a more scattered dirt brush with a closer colour to purple or maroon, which gives off more of the look that a lot of these blood vessels are either burst or damaged, or is otherwise just not in great condition.
Yeah.
Now, suffice to say,
not in great condition is putting it lightly for the people in this experiment.
this guy isn't very fatty, so a lot of the yellowing is going along places that are generally more padded up, like the cheeks, brow, chin and nose, although the nose is less for fat and more for cartilage. But since blood vessels are pretty crowded there, it's also going to be overtaken by a lot of the red for the most part. The bluer parts I'm going to put less focus on, if not outright ignore it, on account of the fact that this thing is super duper bold. But usually you'd see it on the tops of the head and the jaw area respectively if you're curious. We're gonna readjust our curvature texture a bit. Rather than just using the color, we're incorporating a bit of the height layer to it, which should even further define those wrinkles and make it just look a bit more extreme. I'm sure that's a bit of a no-no in texturing, since it's kind of just doubling up on the detail that's already there, but I'm just doing what I think looks right. This results in a little bit of artifacting on the teeth, but since we don't need the curvature as much on those teeth, we can just erase it out in those areas. We'll add a bit more red into the textures in places that really have a lot of blood vessels packed in, since the previous blood colours we did were more broad strokes. This time we're using a slightly redder colour over these higher density areas like the lips, nose and eyelids. I also noticed that the original spasm prop has some vomit or froth of some kind coming out of the mouth, and at the
Ew, he does!
On the Russian sleep experiment photo too. So we're gonna add that in. Since I'm painting this right onto the face, I can't use any transparency for this since it'll just fade right through the head. So we're gonna have to make it convincing using some...
Well, considering in the story, they're like eating each other. They're like cannibalizing each other and ripping stuff up. Not even for eating, sometimes they use their teeth just to tear apart, but I'd imagine they would have some kind of yucky...
I'll be right back, buddy, I won't be long.
Okay, Zayden. I imagine they would have some yuckiness around their mouth.
height layering and a blur filter to make it look less intense. The bubbling on its surface also has its own height layer, and it's a bit wider to illustrate the fact that it's coming off the surface of the face a bit more, and we'll just experiment with the colours and shininess until we get something that looks right. I thought it looked a little odd to have that froth there without any other stains, so I also created a separate layer with just shininess so I can draw in around that area to give the appearance of saliva stains around the mouth. It's at this point that I decided to get rid of the greyed irises entirely in favour of big black pupils, which is more true to the original image, and despite it probably being I also added some pinprick white dots in the centre to reflect the shininess of the eyes in the original image, that feel like they're directing the eyes right to you. For a final touch on the skin, we're adding in those procedural dirt textures again. This just helps the surface have more of an organic wear and create some more imperfections without having to go over all of it manually. And once again, this process is just using the baked textures we got from applying the sculpt details to this model. And that closes out the textures and the model itself. Gaze upon the emaciated form of the Russian sleep experiment.
Wow.
Let's see how we did.
That is incredibly creepy.
Acceptable result. The price has been paid.
Yes!
Oh god, bright light. Ugh. Ow, my eyes.
Alrighty, I'm back.
Eee, well, you want to see the, hang on, you want to see the final result of the, Last sculpture.
Sleep experiment. Let's see how we did.
And officially succeed the creepypasta.
Yep.
Acceptable result. The price has been paid.
Okay, now get back to where we were. Whoa, what's happening? Ah, my eyes.
After all this time, I've waited so long. I've brought the essence of 3 creepypasta figures into existence, into the 3rd dimension. And now that I've paid the price, I can finally get what I've been searching for. A new entity to bring to power. The newest in the line of eldritch horrors. My own creepypasta villain! Behold! Enib! Hey, it's Hib. Enib. We can work on that one. Go on, get out of here.
Bro looks tweaked
Looks like
out.
it's done. Hey, thanks for coming along. I wanted to get something done for the Halloween season, and I'm pretty happy.
It's November.
Reading creepypastas as they got popular, and it's fun to get some creative expression out of them. Hopefully you enjoyed it too, and if you liked it enough to support the video, engagement like commenting or liking the video helps push it out to the algorithm. And if you want to be there for the next big thing, subscribing's probably the best way to keep tabs on me. I'll be out with another video this month, so keep an eye out. And yeah, I mean this month. I missed October by a skid, but hopefully you'll forgive me. With that out of the way, I'll see you for whatever we end up doing next. Thanks again, everyone.
Alright.